Hey guys, today we are going to be talking about one of our science teaks, and it is on science safety. So we are going to learn the tools that are needed to help us be safe when we're practicing and doing science. So let's start out by doing our frame the lesson, okay? Here we go. Remember, we're going to do our arms like this because they're parallel, and then they go like this. And they're also parallel because remember, parallel means they would never touch if they keep going. All right. Here we go. Frame the lesson, frame the lesson, frame the lesson, frame the lesson. All right, our lesson frame, or what we're learning today, is science, safety, and tools. Okay, we will know what science, safety, and tools are. All right? So let's get started. You've already watched the brain pop, hopefully before you are watching me. So we're going to look at some of the science, safety tools that we need to learn about. And since you've already watched the brain pop, you should be able to know these. And we'll just go in more depth about what they are and what they teach us and how they keep us safe. All right, so let's look first. I've already made the anchor chart. I've already got the science tools listed. All right, so here's what we need to do. First of all, up here is a hand lens, okay? A hand lens. It's kind of like a magnifying glass, and it helps us to see objects more clearly. If they're small, it makes them larger. It makes them big. It magnifies them. That's why it's sometimes called a magnifying glass or a hand lens. Hand lens is because you hold it in your hand and you take it and you look at things. It's kind of like a detective. If you've ever seen a detective show and they have the little magnifying glass, it's to help them to look for clues. Okay. Sometimes things are in science are super small. And you have to have something that you can see the object better, because just by looking with your eyes by themselves, you don't see it. Some people wear glasses. Some of you or some of your parents might wear glasses. That's kind of a form of a hand lens. It's just in glasses that go around your face, right? It helps you to see things clearly. So to help us remember this, I am going to draw two little eyeballs because hand lens helps us to see things, right? So I'm going to go ahead and draw a couple little eyeballs right there. So that kind of tells us, oh, that helps us to see. That tool helps us to see things. Okay, the next thing over here is a tape measure. Well, a tape measure is basically like a ruler, but it rolls up. And it's much longer, okay? So if I was wanting to measure how much carpet I needed in my room, or how much paint I needed to have on the wall, I would use a tape measure. Somebody could hold it, and the other person could pull it apart. So it's usually to measure a big space. You can measure little things, but it keeps going and going and going. So it's like a long tool for measurement. So for this, I'm going to put measure. Okay, right by it. And it actually, in the name tape measure, has that. Okay. Measures things is what I'm going to write. That's what it's used for. Next, we have a magnet. Magnets are really fun to play with. It's fun to see what things you can scoot or move or attract or repel with a magnet. And we'll talk about this later on in the year. Magnets make things come together. That means attract. Magnets also can make things repel. So most of you probably have something on your refrigerator that's a magnet, right? Magnets attract to metal. And so it's fun to see kind of what things are magnetic and what things are not magnetic. There's all kinds of cool things that we will be learning about with magnets. So, with the magnet, I'm going to put repels and attracts. Okay? So attracts, take your hands like this. Attracts means they pull themselves together, and repels means it pushes it apart. Okay? All right. So there's that. Attracts and repels. Now, we have goggles. Why would we need goggles when we're talking about science tools and science safety? Who knows? Any ideas? Mia, what do you think? What do you think the goggles would be used for? Goggles are what kind of like glasses, but they fit tighter around your eyes. Goggles would help us in a science room or a science lab if we were doing things with chemicals and fumes, right? And it also keeps us from, when we're working with things that might be harmful to the eyes or hurt our eyes, that you have the goggles. It helps to protect them, okay? It helps you from touching what you're working with and then touching your eyes or touching your face, right? So goggles protect our eyes. So we could say they're a protection. So I'm going to write up here. Oh, my poster's coming down. Protects the eyes. Okay. The next thing we have is a thermometer. So a thermometer is something that helps us to know what the temperature is, whether it's hot or whether it's cold, or if it's in between. Okay, so we look at this when we talk about our seasons. Summer, excuse me, I'm yawning. Summer, fall, winter, spring, right? Some of those are hot, some of those are cold, some of those are cool. That's kind of in the middle. So we use a thermometer in science when we're talking about weather and seasons, okay? And how hot something is. All right, so I'm gonna put on here, I'm just actually gonna draw a sun, and I'm going to draw like some snowflakes, because those two things represent the thermometer of hot and cold. Right, so it's cold and it's hot. Okay. This is the one that is kind of hard to remember. It's not something that we use a lot, and it's not something that people know the name of too much. And it is right here. Some people say, oh, that's a glass or that's a bowl. No, actually for our science words and scientific terms, this is called a beaker, okay? And when we talk about a beaker, you can pour water in it, but you can actually pour any kind of liquid. What is a liquid? Anybody know what a liquid is? A liquid, yes, it is, water is a liquid, but a liquid is anything that flows and moves and can become the shape of the container. So if this was flat, whatever I poured into it would become that shape of that container, right? So that's what a liquid would be. It's like, maybe I'm making a popsicle, and you've seen popsicles, you know, they're long sticks like what we gave out at Meet the Teacher, or they could be in little shapes that we put in little ice cube trays. The liquid becomes whatever shape you've poured it in, right? So a liquid is what we would pour into a beaker. It could be juice. It could be a mixture of a Jell-O mix, water. It would, whatever flows and moves and becomes the shape of the container. All right? So I am going to put holds liquid. And it's another way that we measure things, right? How much liquid do I have? If I poured liquid on the floor and it ran everywhere, would it be easy or hard to measure that? If you said hard, you're right, because it's all over the place. I can't get out a ruler. I can't get out a tape measure and measure liquid, right? Because liquid's all over. So you have to have something to put it in order to measure it. And that's why there are all these little lines going up the beaker. Also, if you look at the top, it has kind of a little spout or a little tip on it. That is on there so that when we pour it into another container, it makes it easier and doesn't go all over the floor. Okay, so that's what a beaker is used for. We have two more things that we are going to be looking at that we use when we're talking about science safety and science tools. The last two is a scale. One of them is a scale. A scale is another way you measure something. Is it heavy? Which would go up here, or I mean heavy would be down here, lighter would be up here. Is it heavy or light, right? We're measuring the weight. So it is another measuring tool, but with this one, it's not one that we would pour into a container. It's not one that we would necessarily measure with a tape measure or a ruler, right? It's not laying flat. This is how heavy it is. If you came for Smart Start Week, you were asked about the bicycle and the skateboard. Which one is heavier? Which one is lighter to pick up, right? Well, the skateboard was lighter. It doesn't take as much for me to lift it as it does the bike. That is what a scale would be. It would tell you, are they equal in weight? Can you pick them both up the same? Or is one heavier or one lighter, right? So that's what a scale is for. It's to measure the weight, okay? So I'm going to write that. Okay, so there we go. Measures weight. The last thing we have is the stopwatch. The stopwatch measures speed. It measures how fast something happens or how slow something happens. Okay, so I'm going to put on there measures speed. Okay, those are what our science tools are used for, and how they keep. And some of them are what keeps us safe. Some of them are how we use them. So, you've watched the Brain Pop. You've listened to me. Okay, science typically is a short little lesson. This is our lesson for today. The next time on Thursday, when you start your lesson, we will be going over this anchor chart, and I will have an assignment for you to do. So it's important that you pay attention. Guys, have a great day. It's good seeing you. Talk to you later.